sheep, cows, or goats?
We have sheep and cows.
Okay. And do you do any supplemental planting? Do you plant seeds, other grasses, herbs, or flowers?
We plant a wide range of different seeds. We do early and late season and mid-season grasses. That gives us a consistent pasture growth through the year. We have legumes, so we've got white and red clover, trefoil, orchard grass, bluegrass, rye, fescue. That gives the animals a diversity of long stem fiber, which is where animals produce the precursor to the dairy fat.
And do you do this every year, every other year?
We do it about every 2 or 3 years. It's kind of we do it every year, but not for the whole farm. We rotate through year to year. So we do intensive grazing, so we can partition off a section of pasture, plant it, and gate it out so the animals can't graze it for a year. And that gives the grass a time to establish itself. And the next year, that will get lighter grazing. And the third year is when it really starts to produce.
Wow. Do you do any kind of chemical or nutritional profiles to test your cheese?
We test for butterfat and for protein. And you definitely see a difference throughout the season, not just with the lactation, but with the quality of forage in the pasture.
Is the spring cheese better in terms of nutrition?
As far as the cheese itself or the milk?
The cheese.
I would say that the late summer to fall milk is going to have more nutrition. That milk tends to have higher butterfat and higher protein than the earlier lactation.
What's the milk like in terms of different seasons?
Well, our spring starts before pasture starts, so they're actually on alfalfa hay and grass hay, and that's not as nutritionally vibrant for the animals as fresh pasture. There's a lot that goes into pasture besides just the grass. There's other micronutrients that they get when sheep graze. They don't just pull the grass off. Sometimes they pull some of the dirt and dirt that's kicked up on the stems that you don't get as much of when you have hay that's shaken off or cut more cleanly, and that's where a lot of the minerals that the sheep and the cows get is from the actual soil itself.
Do you supplement the feed during the season? Do you give them extra seeds or oats or anything like that?
They get rolled barley and rolled corn, and there's a lot of controversy with that. There are a lot of people that try and say they're running a no-grain dairy, and sometimes when you discuss it, you don't get a lot of sympathy when you explain that the animals need it. And the analogy I give people is, imagine a mother that's breastfeeding. If she doesn't get extra energy, what happens to a mother that's breastfeeding is she loses body condition. That all that nutrients has to come out of her body because it's not being met metabolically through diet. So when you put the extra demand of milking on top of an animal that's already feeding, we don't pull our animals off the mothers. So they're already feeding 1 or 2 lambs or 1 calf, and then we're milking them on top. And to be humane and ethical with the animal, we believe that you've got to feed that animal more to keep it in good body condition. And the truth is, when you put that much pressure on a ruminant, they go into what they call a negative energy balance. There's not enough room in the rumen of the animal to eat everything they need as far as forage in a day to meet that requirement. So grain, barley, or some people use peas, some people use oats, or a mixture. That is a much more nutrient-dense medium, and that gives the animal a way to meet its total requirement for the day without going into a negative energy balance.
I just read in a study by Oregon State where they fed these cows 6 pounds of flaxseed per day in addition to their normal food. And they found that, of course, the omega-3s was sky high. Is that something people are doing, or is that just too expensive?
It can be really expensive. The margin for dairy farmers that aren't making cheese is so thin that they source all kinds of non-typical feeds for their sheep and cows. Anything from soybean hulls to orange pulp to beet pulp. And what they do is there's a nutritional table that tells them how much energy, which is carbohydrate and animal talk,
Yeah.
and how much protein is available, and they try and put together a complete mixture. And what they're trying to do is find the cheapest way to feed that animal as possible.
Okay.
Cottonseed is another oil seed that's fed to boost the butter fat in animals. And I am not a veterinarian. I don't know enough about ruminant physiology to say, but my guess is when you feed a foraging ruminant that's meant to eat pasture, tons and tons of oil seeds, it's kind of like me putting a spoon in a jar of Crisco and
force feeding someone.
yeah. And that's just my best guess.
Yeah. Well, you have a degree in biochemistry, right?
Yes.
Well, I think you have a pretty big stand on this. I mean, you have a lot of credentials.
It's not animal physiology. I mean, it's an understanding of
Yeah.
chemistry, but the point is a cow's rumen is almost like its own organism. You've got bacteria that live in there, and the rumen is designed to have a certain bacterial environment. And people are finding now, for immunology for people, a lot of illnesses like Crohn's disease and others are exacerbated by having an imbalance in gut flora. And when we start feeding ruminant animals things that don't harmonize with the proper gut flora, you disrupt the health of the animal, but you also disrupt the metabolic pathways that normally go on. And dairying has changed so much just in 40, 50 years. The way 40 years ago, most people pastured their animals.
Right.
And now, because of land prices being so high, farmers are being forced to dairy on non-sustainable pieces of land. And the way you make that work is, I gave this example the other day. Imagine you're a farmer with 80 acres, and you can put all your cows. You used to have 80 acres of pasture, and that's how they were fed, and you had an allotment set aside for cutting for hay for the winter. What farmers do now is they crowd all the cows into the smallest amount of space that's legally possible, and then they plant the rest of the acreage in soybean or wheat or corn. They get a crop off that, which the corn they'll turn into silage to feed the cows, and the rest they'll sell at market price. So they get a corn crop, plus they've got something to feed the cows, but it's probably not the best thing.
Yeah.